You wake up already tired. Your mind is running before your feet hit the floor. Deadlines, decisions, expectations, all of it pressing down before the day even begins. And no matter how much you rest, the stress just stays. There is a reason for that, and it has nothing to do with how busy you are. Buddhist monks living in some of the world's most demanding monasteries, strict schedules, cold mornings, deep silence, consistently show lower cortisol levels than the average office worker. Researchers have studied this. The data is clear. It is not their circumstances that protect them. It is 3 specific habits, and you can begin all 3 today. The first habit is called mindful pausing. It sounds almost too simple, but neuroscientists at Harvard have a name for what it does. It interrupts the default mode network. That is the part of your brain that replays the past, rehearses the future, and quietly exhausts you without you even noticing. Here is how mindful pausing works in practice. Before you respond to an email, pause. Before you enter a meeting, pause. Before you speak when you are frustrated, pause. Just 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, you are not doing nothing. You are choosing your state instead of being dragged into it. Buddhism calls this space between stimulus and response the seat of wisdom. Viktor Frankl called it freedom. Modern neuroscience calls it prefrontal cortex activation. All 3 are describing the same thing. When you pause, you shift from reactive to intentional. That shift, repeated daily, literally reshapes your brain. A 2018 study published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience found that people who practiced brief, mindful pausing throughout the day showed measurable reductions in amygdala reactivity within just 8 weeks. 8 weeks. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. Less reactivity means less unnecessary suffering. You do not need to meditate for an hour. You do not need a cushion or a candle or complete silence. You need 3 seconds, a breath, a choice. That is the first habit. And the more consistently you practice it, the wider that gap becomes, until stress no longer has the automatic grip it once did. The second habit is deeper. It asks something more of you. Buddhism calls it anicca, the direct contemplation of impermanence, not as a philosophy, not as something you believe in, but as something you feel clearly in the middle of a stressful moment. Think about the last time you were genuinely stressed. A conflict, a deadline, a fear. Now ask yourself honestly, where is that specific stress today? Most of it is gone, not because it was resolved perfectly, but because time moved, because everything moves. That is not a small insight. That is the foundation of Buddhist peace. The problem is not that we forget impermanence. It is that we only remember it after the suffering passes. The habit is to remember it during. In the middle of the storm, you pause, and you gently remind yourself, this feeling is a visitor. It arrived. It will leave. I do not have to become it. This is not toxic positivity. Buddhism never asks you to pretend the pain is not real. It asks you to hold it differently. There is a profound difference between I am stressed and I am experiencing stress right now. One is an identity. The other is a weather report. One traps you. The other gives you room to breathe. Neuroscience supports this completely. Research on cognitive diffusion, the practice of observing thoughts rather than fusing with them, shows significant reductions in emotional distress. When you name the experience rather than becoming it, the brain's threat response softens. You are not in denial. You are in awareness. A practical way to use impermanence awareness during stress. Say this inwardly, slowly. This is temporary. This is already changing. I do not need to hold it so tightly. You are not lying to yourself. You are reminding yourself of what is always already true. And in that reminder, something releases. Buddhist monks practice impermanence contemplation in a very specific way. They study beautiful things, flowers, sand mandalas, careful artwork, and then let them go intentionally, not to become detached, but to train the mind to hold things lightly, to love without clinging, to be present without grasping. You can bring this same quality into your professional life. Hold your goals with effort, but without desperation. Engage fully in conversations without needing them to go a certain way. Work hard without making the outcome the only thing that determines your peace. That is not passivity. That is a very specific kind of freedom. Now, the third habit. And this one surprises most people because it sounds like it is about other people. It is actually about you. Buddhism calls it metta, often translated as loving kindness or compassion. And the science behind it is extraordinary. Here is what research from the University of North Carolina found. People who practiced brief compassion meditation as little as 7 minutes per day showed increased positive emotions, reduced self-criticism, and lower inflammatory markers in the blood. Inflammation is one of the primary physical signatures of chronic stress. Compassion literally heals the body. But why does compassion reduce your stress? Because most of our stress is secretly rooted in self-judgment. The fear of not being enough, the weight of comparing yourself to others, the quiet belief that you must earn your own rest. Metta directly dissolves that root. It replaces the inner critic with something gentler. The traditional metta practice begins, and this is important, not with other people. It begins with yourself. You silently offer yourself kindness first. May I be well. May I be at peace. May I be free from suffering. Not as a performance, as a genuine wish, as if you were speaking to someone you deeply love. Then slowly, you extend that same wish outward, to someone you care about, to a neutral person, a stranger you passed on the street, eventually even to someone difficult, not because they deserve it, but because carrying resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to suffer. Compassion frees you first. You do not need to do the full practice every day. Even 30 seconds of genuine compassion for yourself, for one other person, creates a measurable shift in nervous system state. Your heart rate variability improves. Your breath deepens. The body moves out of threat mode and into something that actually feels like safety. Now let us bring all three habits together, because they are not separate tools. They are one practice, moving in sequence. You pause and create space. In that space, you remember impermanence and release your grip. In that release, compassion arises naturally. The sequence is space, then perspective, then softness. The reason most stress reduction advice fails is that it asks you to fight stress. Buddhism does not fight it. It changes your relationship to it. A pause does not remove the stressor. Impermanence does not make pain disappear. Compassion does not solve the problem, but together they mean that you are no longer at war with your own experience. Start with just one. If you are highly analytical, begin with the pause, 3 seconds before reacting to anything that triggers you today. If you tend to catastrophize and spiral, begin with impermanence. Remind yourself once during a stressful moment that it is temporary. If you are hard on yourself, begin with metta, 30 seconds of self-compassion before you sleep.